in many cultures, you cannot get married until you have this much degree, this much money, you've done this, and then maybe we'll think about getting you married. And then once you are ready to get married, the mahar has to be this amount and this amount and this amount. What Allah did in Islam is He made the path to halal easy and the path to haram difficult. And when you make the path to halal difficult, automatically what becomes a lot easier? The haram becomes way easier. It's so much easier, you know? Assalamu alaikum. Before you begin this video, just quickly wanted to let you know that so much of the work on the Quran has been completed on Bayyinah TV. I want you to enjoy systematically studying the Quran from the beginning all the way to the end in brief and then in great detail. And to do that, I'd like for you to sign up on BayyinahTV.com. And once you appreciate what's going on in Bayyinah TV, I want you to become an ambassador for it and share that subscription with friends and family and give it as a gift also. Thank you. Anyway, so now let's move on to financial cleansing. لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل. Don't cheat each other in money matters. ولا تدلوا بهذا الحكام. And don't use money to grease the palms of politicians so you can cheat people and take their money. Don't use bribery and corruption in politics. Don't use corruption in financial matters. You know, don't cheat each other. Pay each other's money back. Have clear contracts. Fulfill your agreements. What is that doing in a society? It's cleaning up the financial dealings in a society, isn't it? That's also a cleansing. There's a familial cleansing. You know, this society, European society, Western society, American, Australian, Canadian, they're all different. But one thing you will notice there that you don't see as much in the Muslim world today is law and order. Right? They have some things that I wish we saw more of in the Muslim world. I was in Denmark in one place taking a walk and some guy was selling strawberries and he just left his strawberries by the water with a bucket to put money in and the sign of how much you can weigh it yourself, put money yourself. And people come and they put the money and they go. And I'm like, huh. Let's try this in Pakistan. Forget the strawberries, the weighing machine, the box. So you look at, and some Muslims, they see all that kind of corruption in the Muslim world, and then they come to Western nations, they see there's so much honesty and integrity, and there's so much good. Yes. In some matters, they are actually closer to Tazkiyah than the Muslims are, culturally speaking. It's true. They have more integrity. But in other matters, like for example, how we treat our parents, but the way Islam conditions us to treat our parents, especially as they get older. Do you see how people are treated in these societies? How elders are treated in these societies? How teenagers treat their parents? Some guys, you know, dad's name is Frank, and he's not going to call them dad. He's going to say, hey, Frank, I'll be out late. You know? And my dad's stupid, man. My old man. They don't even call him my old man. Right? My mom is so annoying. I hate my parents. Now you can have emancipation laws. In America, we have emancipation laws, meaning I declare myself free of my parents. Bara'atun min abawayn, min al-abawayn. I have nothing to do with you. They could do that. And you have this beautiful tradition inspired by our religion where we treat our parents with kindness and respect and goodness and ihsan and everything that we can do with them. And our siblings and the young, right? There's a rahmah towards them. There's a love and care towards them. Even the prohibition of alcohol, right? You would think it just has to do with food. Do you know how many families are destroyed because of alcohol? Like, or gambling. Allah says don't gamble. You know how many families are destroyed because of gambling? Right? When he says don't commit zina, you know how many families are destroyed because of zina? Right? So like, the laws actually purify the life of a family. And even the way in which breakups happen. Okay, marriage is a reality, so is divorce. And divorce is ugly. It gets ugly. You know, I used to love you, now I don't. I want to get away. Well, Allah says, yeah, it might get ugly. Here are exhaustive instructions on how to make sure divorce doesn't get ugly.
You know, in the Quran, Allah didn't talk about marriage a lot, but He talked about divorce a lot. There's like multiple pages on divorce in Surah Al-Baqarah. There's a whole surah, Surah Al-Talaq. But there's no long, here's how to make a marriage happy. That's just on YouTube. It's not in the Quran. The Quran, you know why? Because you can figure out how to make a marriage work, but you don't know how to make a clean exit. You don't know that. So Allah will teach you that. He purified relationships. He even purified the ends of relationships. He purified even matters that happen after death, like how should family assets be distributed. And then of course there's societal cleansing. Societal cleansing means Allah saved us from the burdens of culture. Allah saved us because cultures create standards that are very difficult. You know, like for example, in many cultures, you cannot get married until you have this much degree, this much money, you've done this, and then maybe we'll think about getting you married. And then once you are ready to get married, the mahar has to be this amount and this amount and this amount. And then if you are going to get married, we have to have this kind of a hall and this kind of catering and these kinds of gifts. And there's like, the bill keeps going higher and higher and higher and higher. And what Allah did in Islam is He made the path to halal easy and the path to haram difficult. And what many cultures do is they make the path to halal extremely what? Difficult. And when you make the path to halal difficult, automatically what becomes a lot easier? The haram becomes way easier. It's so much easier. You know? So what is, even at a societal level, what our religion did is actually, prevent evil by making the thing that Allah is happy with, He makes that easier. But cultures make it difficult. And what's ironic to me is Muslim cultures make halal more difficult than even non-Muslim cultures. Muslim cultures make halal more difficult. And then we complain that the youth are going towards haram. Right? And we don't even address the root causes of it. And all of these purifications are actually connected to each other. Let me just give you a quick example, because this is something you should really contemplate. Financial cleansing. If you get rid of financial corruption in a society, you know what that means? People can earn an honest living. Yes or no? He says, don't pay politicians to get your way. Didn't He say that? Now, what happens in many Muslim societies, for example, you will get a job if your uncle is connected. If your dad's connected, if your friend's dad's cousins, brothers, whatever's connected, isn't it? And even if you didn't do well on the exam, you can pay a little bit to the principal of the school or the head or whoever, and you can get the degree. You can buy the degree, or you can pay for your score. Happens or no? When people who didn't earn their degree get their degree and get their license, what happens to the people who actually worked hard to get their degree? Now they can't get a job. Now their education means nothing, because now the people who didn't deserve are being moved up. Now the people who could have earned are no longer in a position to earn. And now they're no longer in a position to earn, which means they're no longer in a position to get married. And then the people who are doing haram and money things usually don't just do haram and money things, they do haram in everything. So they're living the life, they look like they're in Jannah. So they're making haram look really good, because the more haram you do, the more you get in life. And everybody else is looking at them and saying, Ya layta lana mithla ma utiya Qarun. I wish I had what Qarun has. I wish I had a big wedding like that. I wish I had a hall like that. I wish I had family like that. I had money like that. I had clothes like that. I had a car like that. I had a job like that. Then you say, well, the only way you can get that is you got to start playing the game like they know how to play the game. You got to lie a little bit on your resume. You got to make some connections. You got to get dirty. You want to win this game? You want to win in politics? Life is dirty. What is the opposite of dirty? Pure. وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. Right? This is a very comprehensive statement, and which is why I wanted to talk to you at the bottom. Tazkiyah starts with something internal. Like introductory Tazkiyah is my thoughts are becoming cleaner. My opinions are becoming cleaner. My worldview is becoming cleaner. It's being detoxed from cultural imprints, from previous religious imprints. Those are now getting away. And I'm becoming cleansed in my thoughts by revelation. But there's deep tazkiyah. Let me give you the analogy. If you have an impurity on your skin, something like dirt, is that easy to wash or no? Yeah, that's easy to wash. But if you have an infection inside, is that easy to get rid of? No. And the deeper an impurity is, the more painful it is to extract it. If a bullet has entered inside the body, then there has to be surgery, painful surgery to extract it. When a society has deep filth, when a family has deep filth, when you've been living in deep filth, and then you start to cleanse yourself, then you have to go through painful surgery, which means the people that try to purify themselves, this is a very painful process. This is not an easy, at the beginning it's just an intellectual process, a spiritual process, that's fine. But when you actually start taking steps towards purifying yourself, it's a painful process. An easy example of that, just because I don't want to speak only abstract, I want to give you concrete examples of this, is like, I'm reminded of a young man I met, he was a little bit younger than me. I met him at a masjid after Maghrib. He was just kind of sitting there in the back waiting. And I just decided to just have a chat with him. And he said, I have never seen the inside of a masjid before in my life. I was like, did you recently accept Islam? He goes, no, I was born in a Muslim family. Well, we don't pray. I was like, why don't you pray? I was like, well, our family's not religious. And even though we're Muslim by name, we actually really hate Islam in my family. And we own a bunch of bars in New York. You know, we have 20 bars. Our family owns 20 bars in New York. Very successful bar business. All Muslims, by the way. We drink alcohol more than we drink water. That's just in our family. That's what we do. I've done that my whole life. And something just came in my head that I shouldn't drink anymore. It makes me do things I don't like myself when I drink. And when he stopped drinking, he became curious about the Quran. And he started reading a little bit, then watched some YouTube videos and found out I was at this masjid. He just sat there. But he's like, ever since I stopped, I don't even pray yet. He said, I don't even pray yet. He said, but I just stopped drinking and my whole family cut me off. And they're threatening me. They're threatening to sue me. I can't even go back to my home. They changed the lock on the door. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. What's he doing? He took one step towards cleansing himself. And look at the pain he has to go through. You understand? So when he says yuzakihim, see the first step was actually painless. He recites the ayat. You listen to the ayat. You hear what Allah is saying. You can walk away. Somebody heard the ayat in the marketplace and they walked away. No problem. But someone who decides that they're going to, wait, what did I just hear? I need to hear more of this. I need to go listen. And when you start to try to purify yourself, man, the pain begins. Some of you actually haven't told your families that you're here. You're here secretly. Because your families can't tolerate that you're learning. They can't tolerate that you're in a masjid. You went where? In a masjid? Why? Why did you go to the masjid? Is this why we brought you to Germany? This is why we live here? You want to be an extremist? You want me to call the police on you now? And like, I'm just gonna quietly, I'm going to the library. Okay. And you just show up. Tazkiyah is painful. The Sahaba started going through Tazkiyah. Some people heard him, they started listening to him, and this is where I want you to understand the difference between, or actually two things, yuzakihim and yuzaki bihim. He purifies them, and he purifies them using it, meaning the Quran. Actually, Allah is highlighting, there's a tawassu' here. I'll super simplify this. Allah is saying the Prophet ﷺ is purifying these people that are coming close to him, not just by the Quran, but he was also by his company. So if he was yuzakihim bihi, then it would be about the Quran alone. But yuzakihim now includes the Quran and includes the Prophet's company, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there's tawassu' in this phrasing. I also want you to understand this in easy marketing terms. You guys understand the term funnel marketing? Like you first expose somebody to the product, and then you get them to click on your website, and then they get more information, right? The yatlu alayhim ayatihi is just exposing people to revelation. Just let them hear what it is. And then some of them will say, I want to know more. And the ones who want to know more will take a deeper dive, and what's going to start happening with their thoughts, with their opinions, with their view of the world, with their hearts, with their emotions, and eventually even with their actions, that's going to be yuzakihim. That's the second step. Is everybody who hears the ayat going to make it to the second step? No, some people will. And some people will get a little bit of it and then say, that's enough for me. And others will say, no, this is not enough. I need to take a deeper look. Because the moment it starts getting painful, some people say, you know what, I'm going to go back. This is too painful. And other people say, no. You can't get really detoxed unless you go through some pain. There has to be some surgical process here. So they keep taking these further and further steps. We use a keyhim. Okay. So this is understanding the progression. Now, we get to, and I'll give you your break in a minute, but introduce you to the next part. A new verb. He says he reads the ayat, he purifies them, but then he says he teaches them. He teaches them. What is the difference between reading something to someone and teaching someone? It's a big difference or no? When you read something, if I read something to you, like the news is reading something to the audience, isn't it? And you can listen to 1 hour of the news, and then after listening to the news, I say, okay, now give me a full summary. What was said? What's happening in Ukraine? What's happening in the Khalij? What's happening here? What's happening there? How many this? How many? I start quizzing you after listening to 1 hour of the BBC or whatever you listen to. Are you able to answer all those questions? Because when you listen to something was read to you, that doesn't mean you actually learned it. You just got exposed to it. It's casual. You're doing it while driving. You're doing it while doing other tasks. But if I teach you something, you know what that means? That means, one, you are completely dedicated to learning. Because you can't teach someone in the mall. You have to teach someone in the classroom. You have to teach someone who decides to become a student. What I want you to recognize here is when the word yu'allimu is used, now the audience is even more restricted. Yatlu is the broadest audience. Yuzakkihim is the lesser audience. And even within that is a subset, which is what? Yu'allimuhum. He teaches them. He teaches them. And now this teaching is about the Prophet ﷺ actually educating a handful of people that are going to become his top students. And they have to show him extra dedication for learning. And this is actually the exact process that we must introduce in our communities around the world, Muslim communities around the world. They say, why don't youth come to the masjid? How come they don't come? How come we do so many programs, but we only see old people there? There's no young people coming. Well, they're not coming because they don't know what they should come for. They haven't been exposed to why should they even be interested. What step gets them at least interested? Why is this so powerful? Why is this so miraculous? Why do I need to learn it? That's which step? 1. يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. That's step 1. And if somebody does become curious, then there should be something there for them to nurture them and to allow them to become cleansed little by little, which is step what? That's step 2. That's yuzakkihim. There's something that, okay, let's give you some company where you can learn more. Or you can be around company that supports you and helps you cleanse your thoughts, and you can share your ideas, your opinions, your previous knowledge, and that can get corrected a little bit. That's tazkiyah. You're getting corrected intellectually. You're getting corrected in your habits. You know, there were guys that use bad words. Every other word that comes out of their mouth is a bad word, right? Like if you go to, you know, I moved to Texas. People in Texas are nice. They're actually nice. So when you go to the store, they're like, hi, sir. How are you, sir? How's it going, ma'am? Let me get that door for you. Not like Germany. Let me tell you. But you know, people are nice in Texas. But when I used to live in New York, I didn't realize in New York, people use such bad language all the time. They cannot say something like, I am at the bus stop. They can't say that. They have to say, boop, I'm at the boop bus stop. Boop. You heard? Like, it's a verb, it's an adverb, it's an adjective, it's a preposition. It's every part of speech. Okay? It's a necessary insertion in between. You know how some people are extra religious? They like say subhanallah in everything, like awkwardly. Like some people they just say that. You know, sometimes I get awkward around those people. Like some people are overly subhanallah. Like we're at a restaurant, Sheikh, what are you gonna order? Subhanallah. I was like, I'm not a sheikh. And I'm just gonna place an order. Yeah, subhanallah, what would you like? Oh, I'll have the chicken shawarma. Oh, chicken, subhanallah. I was like, Okay, that's better than New York. Yo, boop, boop, boop. You want boop chicken? Two extremes. Yes, I'll have some subhanallah chicken, but anyway. But what I'm saying is some young man who comes out of New York or comes out of that, Berlin, I don't know. They come from that language. And that's normal for them. They use that all the time. Some of you guys sitting in the masjid here, you're a certain way here, but when you're at school with your friends, that's a different kind of German, isn't it? That's spicy. And then you replace that with subhanallah over here. That's what you gotta do, right? But when you're in good company for a longer time, what happens to that young man? He starts using those words less. Because that company is slowly detoxing those words. That's the detox too, isn't it? And then the things you talk about when you're with your boys at school and with your girls at school, what kind of subjects are you talking about? You know. And then you're in a better company, and what kinds of things are you talking about? You're in a company learning something about the Quran. What kinds of things are you discussing? A personal experience of mine on this, and I'll give you a break, is when I was in high school, I was not into Islam at all. All my friends were non-Muslim, all of them. And I have a vicious, cruel sense of humor. Like, I love humiliating people. This is one of my shaitans, is when people say something, I can rip them apart. And I was full on in high school. I was so insulting in high school. I was the king of insults. And then you come into the Islamic scene, right? And you can't, you just want to, it's so easy. Somebody says you just want to rip them apart. They're like, no. Subhanallah. But one of the things that happened was my old friends, the things we used to talk about is, sports, cars, other things that shall not be named. And then I go with my new friends at the Muslim Students Association, and we go to this. I went to the poor people's school, Baruch College, which was like $1,600 a semester. That was the poor people college. One time we went to a Muslim Student Association at Columbia University, which was like $40,000 a year for 17, 18-year-olds. So this was a rich people's school. So I was like, man, there's going to be some rich Muslims in Columbia. Let's go see what the rich Muslims do. So we go there, we're sitting in a circle, and there's a bunch of college students that are maybe a year or two older than me. They're 18, 19 years old, 20 years old at the most. And they're discussing how they're trying to put money together to sponsor orphans that have been distranded because of a flood that happened in Bangladesh. And they've got a banner of one of the kids that they're trying to sponsor. And these students are going to make some difference by helping this one child. And I come from a company of guys that are like, yo, what are we going to do this weekend? Where are we going to go? What should we do? These are the conversations. These low-level conversations. And now I'm in the company of people that are a year or two older than I am. They're much wealthier than I am. They're much more prestigious than I am in my mind. So you would think if they have more money, they have more prestige, they're wealthier, they must be partying way harder. And yet they're talking about things that are like so high up. And I felt dirty inside. What is it that makes these young people think like this? How come I don't think like this? How come my mind is down here and their mind is up there? Something that Allah's deen does, something that this book does, is that it cleanses. So, ayatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim. And then from there, from that cleansing, then you get to yu'allimuhum al-kitab. I'll tell you one more thing. If you started teaching tafsir, high-level tafsir, or you start teaching fiqh, or you start teaching aqidah, or whatever, you start these classes and courses, how many people show up? 5 people? That becomes 3 people? That is just the imam and his best friend? And then there's a wedding the next weekend, and it's just tarakuka qa'ima, they just leave you alone. Oh, these people don't even want an education. They don't want to learn anything. Well, they don't want to learn anything because the first 2 steps aren't in place. When those steps are in place, by the way, the people who will seriously learn will never be a large population. The people who will seriously learn will always be a smaller population, right? Because you can't expect that high level of commitment from everybody. In fact, that wasn't even expected from all the Sahaba. Not all the Sahaba were learning all the time. There were people in, there were Ahlul Sufa. They were a subset. They were not everyone. Everyone had other responsibilities. So there will be some learning that happens, and happens more exclusively. So you shouldn't guilt yourself. That's the other thing about this. You shouldn't guilt yourself that you're not engaged in higher learning, and until you do higher learning and you become a sheikh yourself, or you leave society and go sit under a tree to learn some classical texts, then you're not a good Muslim. No, that's not the point. The point is the few who do learn, their responsibility becomes to teach everyone else. And the Quran talks about that too. Allah talks about that too. But I will now, in our next session after your break, I'm going to dedicate our time talking about Al-Kitab particularly. And I'm going to share some things with you Al-Kitab and then Al-Hikmah and wrap up today's session. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bid ayat wa dhikr al-Hakim.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. There are almost 50,000 students around the world that are interested, on top of the students we have, in studying the Quran and its meanings and being able to learn that and share that with family and friends. And they need sponsorships, which is not very expensive. So if you can help sponsor students on Bayyinah TV, please do so and visit our sponsorship page. I appreciate it so much and pray that Allah gives our mission success and we're able to share the meanings of the Quran and the beauty of it the world over.